so mysterious? Just sit down and hang with us. Why so mysterious?
This is Why So Mysterious, the podcast where we attempt to fill the gap between the bodies we have and the lack of knowledge around them,
We're sharing our experiences and answering our own questions
with some help along the way.
to destigmatize tricky, taboo topics.
The
Triple T's. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today our guest is Eliza Trendiak. She came out of the womb ready to get down to business. First starting with charging her sister for dance lessons, then selling cucumbers on the side of the road, and even buying and raising 2 cows and selling them for a profit as a kid. She undoubtedly was born with an entrepreneurial spirit. After graduating with a business degree, she pivoted to pursue a career in hair. Despite everyone questioning her new career choice, she jumped right in and soon after opened her first salon in 2015. Artel Salon has now grown to encompass 3 locations in Vancouver with 30 employees, winning awards in technology and salon leadership. Eliza has always put her heart into everything she does as a proud business owner, boss, and soon-to-be mother. She's due with her first baby any day now. Welcome.
Welcome.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm tired today, but Rob got me a mocha, so I'm feeling better.
Ooh.
But yeah, no, I'm good.
You're allowed, what, like 1 coffee a day?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much 1 coffee a day.
That's good.
Oh, you can have coffee? I thought
Yeah.
coffee was like a no-go at all.
It's so funny, like there's so many things that you hear, but the midwives are like, no, you can totally have like 1 a day, like in moderation.
Yeah.
But I was worried before I got pregnant because I used to drink like 2 pots of coffee a day.
Oh.
But then the second I got pregnant, my desire for black coffee like went away completely. And so now I just drink like a wussy drink, like a mocha, with like 1 little shot of espresso in it. And then that like holds me over. But I'm very much looking forward to when my desire for real coffee comes back.
We've talked, like Eliza and I have talked about,
Yes.
obviously, her pregnancy because I'm a super curious person and I want to know everything. And I think that's why we wanted to have you on the podcast because I think there's, just like you said about the coffee, like there's so many things you hear about pregnancy that you think is like, okay, this is, you know, like the rules of pregnancy, but then there's also so much you don't hear about pregnancy that I think like you
That you just like learn the hard way and you're like, what?
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
I think is super unfair. But then also, yeah, the reason that we wanted to have you on here too is like, you know, for you, it probably will be a personal experience at
Yes,
some point
hopefully.
of running a business, being pregnant. And then for me, like personally at this point in my life, I'm thinking I'm not going to be having children. But I also, one of the things that really terrifies me about like that happening is just like, how the fuck am I supposed to like maintain my autonomy and individuality as a human
Yeah.
and be a mother? Like those things scare me, and so I like to
Yeah.
talk to people who are actually like taking on that journey. It's like, how do you feel about that? So
Yeah.
with someone as busy as you and as also as successful as you, I feel like this is a good conversation to have.
Totally. And I feel like you literally just like wrapped up all my fears in a nutshell. I'm literally due in like 3.5 weeks and I'm still wrestling with that. And I think for me, you know, the idea of being a mom or like having kids was always something that was like, I'm not interested right now. I'll just like do it in the future. Like I always pictured it like this like far off future thing. And, you know, just never really actually gave much thought to it. And like, I'm 34 now, so it's kind of like, okay, you're kind of getting to that like time where I'm like, okay, I can't like push this off another 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, that has been a huge fear for me. Just like, yeah, maintaining that autonomy, that individuality, all that kind of stuff. And like straight up, I've started going to a therapist like to talk about it because,
Oh, wow.
you know, as somebody who didn't like always like dream about being a mother, dream about motherhood, like all my dreams were wrapped up in like businesses and achieving goals and all these things. And it was like, how do those two worlds kind of collide?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of in the smack dab in the middle of like trying to still figure that out, and will be figuring that out for
Yeah.
the foreseeable future.
I think it's like it's probably always like a process, especially as your kid grows and everything around you grows. It's one of those things that it's an ongoing journey.
Yeah,
So-
definitely. I think it's like so interesting to me because I personally, like, I remember being like in my early 20s, and like family is like such a big, like, I have a big family, so it's always been like, when are you gonna have kids? Like, I started being asked when I was 16, when am I gonna have kids? Because I mean, that's my family.
that's crazy.
It was always just like, oh, I'm gonna have kids, but it was just, I don't know, it just never, like, obviously never happened at the time. And then I remember thinking like that was gonna be like a priority in my life. And then when I went to school and then when I started my business, I remember thinking like, okay, like, no, this is like what I actually want to do with my life and not just be a mother. And I never thought I was going to be like a stay-at-home mom or anything like that, but kids were like priority. And then as soon as I kind of, I guess, like found myself, my goals in life changed. And then I definitely have in the last few years, like, now that I'm married, I'm like more interested in having kids, but it's kind of like, how the hell do you run a business and one that's like growing and is just like takes up so much energy, and then also have kids? So like, and that's why I'm like, I feel so grateful to have you guys in my life, because I'm like, I'm so excited to just see you go through this journey and hopefully support you in this journey, because it's something that like I do want to do, but it's definitely like I can for sure feel like, or I can imagine how you feel of like finding that would be really difficult, I think.
Yeah.
And I think like a couple things. One, like having Rob as my husband, who has been amazing through the whole process. And I think like having a partner that like supports your dreams is kind of half the battle.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, like Rob and I feel like we haven't set up our relationship to have like traditional marriage roles. You know, so like he's not expecting me to like become this domestic housewife, which I've never been, and has always encouraged me to like follow my dreams and open salons and start businesses and all this kind of thing. So like hands down, without that support, I think it would be a million times more difficult. But thankfully he doesn't like expect that traditional role from me. But yeah, I think for me, like one of the biggest fears that I've had is this idea of like motherhood and what like society thinks it looks like. And I've just like, a lot of my like resistance and hesitation has been like this fear of just being like lumped into this category.
Yes.
Totally.
And genuinely thinking that like if I had a kid, I would become a completely different person. Like this like fear that like I'm suddenly gonna like start wearing sweatshirts that say rosé all day and like and like doing all this like mom stuff that like does not at all. And then, you know, you've got family members that like, and friends that like mean well and that are excited for you, but they like start to like lump you in this category that like your interests are going to change and you're going to start like, you're going to be a part of all these inside jokes that I'm like, I don't want to be a part of, you know? and so my idea of like pregnancy and my idea of motherhood, I feel like were so skewed because I just didn't feel like I saw many examples of like how I wanted to do it. And so I think the reason why we waited like till I was in my mid 30s is because I just had such this fear that like if I got pregnant and had a kid, I would become a different person. But like Rob reminds me all the time. He's like, Eliza, your life doesn't look like other people's. Like, you've chosen this path. You live the life exactly the way you want to live it. You haven't done like the traditional job route. Or when have you ever just like fallen into like the status quo because that's what is expected of you? So why would this be any different? So that, yeah, but it's definitely like still a fear, but it's something that I'm like, okay, yeah, just because I'm pregnant and I'm having a kid doesn't mean that I'm suddenly going to morph into this other person. It might be like, I definitely relate to pregnant women now, and I'm going to relate to mothers in a different new way than I have ever been able to, because I'll have gone through that experience. But even so far, like in pregnancy, I've been like, oh, I'm still the same person. Like, I still have the same like clothing style. I still like the same music. It's, and there was this genuine fear that like, when I pictured myself, I pictured like a completely different person. But I'm like, oh, it's literally still me, just with like, I swallowed a basketball.
So
I mean, that makes me feel better, too.
Definitely. I feel like I've had the same fears, like the same feelings of like, oh, well, am I going to start wearing like,
Are you going to be a frumpy mom?
No, I always picture myself with like a ponytail and a zip-up puffy vest.
Oh.
Like it's like these things that I'm like, I've never picked up those clothes in my life. Why would I ever be that person? But then I think like for me, it came to me like not that long ago where I kind of had the same realization where I'm like, okay, well, I've never done anything like anybody else. Like, I've always just done my own way of life, like my own path. And that's not always been great, but like I've done it. And then, so I was thinking like this a couple months ago, I was like, when I get to that point, I'm going to be able to figure it out, just like I've figured everything else out. And I think like keep that sense of individuality when having kids. And I think like similar to you is like, like being married, I have a husband that doesn't expect me to fall into the traditional like wife role, so like that's allowed me to step away from the idea of what like motherhood is going to look like. Like, I'm not going to be a servant like that. I'm not that type of person. I'm not that type of wife. Like, I don't think people need to be. Like, I think marriage can be something totally different than what society puts on you. And so, like, when I kind of realized, like, okay, well, I'm not a wife, like, traditional, like, standards of what a wife would be. I'm not going to be like a traditional mother either. And I think that's totally fine. Like, I don't think you need to be.
That's a good thing to remember. I've had like a few conversations with my mom recently about like just like societal pressures on like women, and especially women who are like, like we'll just say like heteronormative kind of relationships and gender roles and all that. And my mom is so like I have a younger sister, and both me and my sister were just like, kind of pregnancy was just happened to my mom. She wasn't planning it. She wasn't super stoked, but it was like, okay, now I'm going to be a mom. And like, she loves being a mom, but she's definitely like unique in her approach to the whole thing. And recently I was talking to her because I'm about to turn 30 and stuff, and I'm single for the first time in a really long time. And I was like, I have some people around me who are also single and around the same age who feel like they're running out of time to find a husband and have children. And I was like, I don't feel that way. But sometimes I feel kind of like, that
like you should feel that
like
way?
I should feel that way. And my mom's reaction was just like, why? Like, that was just it. She was just like so black and white about it. She was just like, I don't understand why you would think that. Like, just like plain putting it out there. So it's nice to have people around you who also like remind you, sometimes bluntly, that like it doesn't have to be that way.
No.
So
no.
That's awesome. I'm like, I love that response from your mom. That's amazing.
Yeah. You don't have to. And I think that's like, both Eliza and I come from like pretty Christian backgrounds. And so that's like, oddly, like, I think I went through a phase when I was in my early 20s where I expected, it was weird because I had two ideas of myself.
Mm-hmm.
It was like this idea where I was like super independent. I just like have always been me. But then it's like the societal norms of like, especially being raised like Christian. It was like, be married by 23. And like, you know, those things were like set in my mind of like, but then when I was 23, I was like, I can't be married right now. Like,
So if you'd married the guy that you were with
yeah,
when you
like
were
I would have
23,
been miserable. It would have been horrible. And so like my life didn't end up going that way. And it was kind of like a funny, like, while I was living it, it was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. I'm not going to get married at this age. But it's like, looking back, I felt like, it's like I wanted to be really independent. But then I had these ideas of my life. And it's like those things where like society's just setting up, like this is how you're supposed to live your life. But it's like allowing yourself to just like carve out a different path and like not have to find a husband by a certain time or a partner. Like it really doesn't matter. Just like that it's okay to just like find yourself. And then if you happen to find someone that you actually want to spend the rest of your life with.
Absolutely. And have children with.
And have children with, you know?
That's a whole...
So,
I know, even like we've started like putting like a little bookshelf and stuff together for her. I'm having a girl, and I'm being like so particular about the kind of books that we're even having. Like I'm like, there's no princess books where like the princess is just locked away and the prince has to come save her. It's like I've got like rebel or goodnight stories for rebel girls, and like girls can do anything, and like all these things, because that like growing up in that very like traditional background, it's like everything you're working towards is like with the end goal of marriage and motherhood. And like if she wants those things, if my daughter wants those things, like amazing, I'm gonna be there to support her. But if she doesn't, I don't want her to ever feel like she's like less than or like less of a woman because she didn't follow that path, you know? So
yeah, it's a choice that we all should have the opportunity to make on our own instead of through like subliminal or less subliminal messaging.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
Disney is not subliminal. Disney is blatant.
Yeah, it's
very
super
blatant. Yeah. So let's.
I love it.
I want to get into
the
some
nitty gritty of pregnancy.
Yes, one of the questions that that we have is, and I'm sure you've told Sarah about some of them. I'm curious. One, was your pregnancy planned? But also, once you were pregnant, was there anything that happened maybe in like the first little while or even now where you were like, what the fuck? Why didn't somebody tell me that this was going to happen? Would it be that physical or like mental reactions to things going on with your body?
Yeah. So the pregnancy wasn't like planned, but it was kind of like we stopped trying to prevent it from happening. And you know, because it was during like quarantine and lockdown, and we've always talked about like if we ever have a kid, I wanted to like try and plan a pregnancy around my baseball season because I love baseball and I didn't want to like miss out. And so we're like, well, during COVID, we're like, well, there's going to be no baseball this year, so should we just like remove the goalie and see what happens? And we ended up getting pregnant like I think the second month that we were like trying. And I was like, well, that was easy. And then baseball season actually ended up happening. So I played like all through the season until I was like three months pregnant, and like I'd have to like leave the field and go puke in a garbage can and come back. But I did the whole season.
Wow.
So it was, not planned, but also not trying to make it not happen. But yeah, I mean, it's been so interesting because I literally had 8 friends have babies last year, and 7 of them, it was their first baby. So I kind of got this like front row view of like everything that's going on, and like the experiences were so crazy different across the board. And so I feel like all you kind of have to hang on to is like what your friends have experienced. So you're kind of expecting those like same things to happen to you. But I was really lucky. Like in my first trimester, I really only got like, really only felt nauseous for maybe like 3 weeks. And it wasn't morning sickness. I would like only puke before bed. So I was like, I don't know why they call it morning sickness, because I only puke at nighttime. But I had never experienced that level of fatigue before. Like just like so tired. Like if I don't drop down and sleep right now, I'm going to bawl my eyes out, like that tired, and it would just hit you. So that was really tricky because obviously I'm like at the salons working, and like suddenly at like 3 p.m. every day, I'd be like, I have to go home and sleep. And, you know, you're not telling people that you're pregnant. And you're also like, for me, I always try and like lead by example with my work ethic. So I was really struggling with like, if I leave at 3 o'clock every day, like I look like I'm such a slacker. So that was so hard. So I was like trying to hide the fact that I was going home to sleep. I'd be like, oh, I got a meeting and I have to leave. So that was really interesting. And I think like the funniest thing is that I had this idea that I was going to become like ginormous. Like I literally thought that I was gonna like kind of look and feel like by the end that I was wearing like a sumo suit. Like when I started buying some maternity clothes, like I still have some that I own that are just like so big they're falling off of me. But I like.
Is there a reason you thought you were gonna get that big? Yeah.
I think like I don't know. I'm a short person with a short torso, so I just figured everything was like gonna go out. And right. I know you kind of like get like bloated and stuff, and I figured that like I wasn't going to be like exercising the same way I did before, and yeah, I just figured that I was going to be huge. So I look at some of the things that I bought and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like I even bought like a fake engagement ring because I was like, oh, my wedding ring's not going to fit anymore.
Really?
Whoa.
So I bought like a fake one, and it is so big it like falls off of Rob's thumb. Like I thought my fingers were gonna be like this big.
Oh my
like,
god.
Oh my god.
I've never worn the ring once because it's literally so giant. Like it could be a toe ring, I think.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so that was really funny, and even now, like most people say, like, oh, from the back, like you look exactly the same. And I mean, I'm literally still wearing like the same underwear that I wore before I was pregnant, and I still wear some of the same like shirts and stuff, and it's just like tight around the belly. So that was kind of interesting for me too. Was like I really thought that I was going to feel like I was like morbidly obese, just like, you know, and like expecting just to kind of like waddle and like shake the ground as I walked. But I'm like, I don't know, like I still walk to work and I still look in the mirror and I'm like, oh yeah, it's me. It's just like me with like a large round belly.
Well, that's awesome.
That's it.
Is there
so
anything
funny.
that like you were maybe unaware of before you got pregnant that you became aware of after that you wished like in sort of like kind of like family planning type of subject that you'd had more information on? Does that make sense?
I think like it wasn't like there was anything like oh, I wish I had known this sooner, but there were just some things that like totally came as a surprise. Like for one, like this, like right when you start getting pregnant, like the amount of like discharge that you have is just like insane. So I was like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? Like, I felt like I was having to change my underwear like all the time, which shout out to Revel Girl. That's like literally the only underwear I wear now because I was like, nobody has talked about this.
Never heard that before.
I've never heard that until you told me that.
And was this through the whole pregnancy or just like
through the whole pregnancy?
Really?
Yeah.
Through the whole pregnancy. And like I had never heard a single word about it. So I was like thinking like, is something wrong? Like, is this normal? And then I asked all my girlfriends and they're like, oh yeah, totally, through the whole pregnancy. And I was like,
Why did nobody say
But that
anything?
would be really good to know because
Yeah.
it's like if you did know, then you could have a chance to like prepare. That's something you can prepare for. But
Yeah.
then being like, and also I
Definitely.
feel like, yeah, if that were to happen to me, I'd be like, something is wrong. Like
Yeah.
something's wrong.
Yeah.
The more you know.
The more you know. And I actually, like, because you had told me about that, and I was like, I had no idea, you know, because my thing was, like, I assumed when someone was pregnant, especially, like, because some of our customers will eventually, like, maybe go through pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, that's a period of time where those people don't need our underwear anymore. And so I've never thought to be like, oh yeah, like use the underwear during pregnancy. Personally, I've never been pregnant, so I don't know. I'd never heard of this, like more discharge. And then I was like, okay, post-pregnancy, like postpartum, people will need the underwear again. So like, I just thought there was like 9 months where you definitely don't need the
Don't need
underwear. And then it's like, you told me, and I was like, what?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I literally wear my Rebel Girl underwear like infinitely more throughout my pregnancy than I did in regular life because I, wear it for once a week out of every month.
Yeah.
Now I just wear it. It's my everyday underwear.
I
that's
love
great.
that. It was so interesting because I was curious. I mean, with anything with the body, I immediately am like, okay, why is this happening?
Yeah.
So I was like doing some research, and it's actually like what's happening is that like the body is producing more discharge to protect from infections in
Really?
in the uterus. So basically, it's flushing out any risk of infection
Anything that
during
can
the
get in.
pregnancy. And then it starts to increase, apparently it increases like the last few weeks. So better have some underwear.
Yeah, get ready.
prepared. Get ready.
Another, this is kind of a funny story about like things you didn't really realize, but like, no one ever told me like how hard it was going to be to wipe your bum after going to the bathroom. Like, legit, the struggle is real. So I was like grabbing my lunch from Whole Foods at work one day, and I went to the bathroom, and there was like a lineup of people. I went in, went to the bathroom, and then you feel that like pressure in like a public washroom, especially when there's a giant lineup of people, to like not take too long. And the way the baby was sitting, she was kind of like up and like in my rib, so you really can't like bend forward that much. And I'm just like, and I couldn't bend back, and I couldn't bend forward, and I was like, I can't reach my own butt. Like, what am I going to do? And I was like literally texting my girlfriends from inside the stall being like, how come you never told me? It was going to be so hard to wipe my own ass.
Oh no! Oh, that's so sad.
And I was like, this is just like, there's so many things you just like take for granted as like a very easy thing to do normally. Like, this is just part of everyday life. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna have to sit here until like she moves and I can actually like bend over and reach myself. I was in there forever.
There's so many
my
things like that.
God.
Like, I remember hearing, like, one of my closest friends had a baby almost 3 years ago, and I spent time with her when she was really pregnant, and, like, finding out at a certain stage, like, you can only sleep on your left side. You can no longer sleep on your right side. You can no longer sleep on your back. Because you're, like, pinching a vein that's very important.
Really?
Yeah. And then from that, it was, like, her bed. Like, they didn't have a bed frame at the time, so the mattress was on the floor. And she was like, for me to get up off the floor, but also it's, like, she said it was, like, a weird kind of sideways crab shuffle because you can't just launch yourself. And then you got to get up to pee, like, 1,000,000 times in the night. It was just like,
Oh
what?
my God.
I actually like I've been to a couple of physio appointments with like the purpose of like learning how to properly roll over and sit up and like get out of bed, because normally you just like because normally you just like you wake up, you sit up, and then like there's a time where you're like, I can't do that anymore, and I'd feel like I was like a ladybug like on my back, like not able to get up. So there's like a proper way you gotta like turn, you gotta use like your legs and your hands to push yourself up. And yeah, even the thing about not sleeping on your right side. So like my heartburn has been insane in the third trimester. I like kind of knew that was coming, but I should have bought stock in Tums because I eat so many of them. Like they're stashed everywhere.
Oh.
But if you lay on your right side, the heartburn is like infinitely worse than if you lay on your left side. But then if you lay on one side for too long, then your like hips start aching and you want to roll over. So you're just like constantly trying to manage like what kind of hurts less.
Do you just have like a million pillows, like a lot of different pillows, or like how do you?
Like I still just sleep with two, but yeah, like normally, yeah, one under my head and then there's like one with my arm around. So it hasn't been too bad, but yeah, the heartburn thing I was not prepared for because I thought like, oh, maybe if you eat something spicy or acidic or whatever, but it's just like constant all day, every day, no matter what you eat.
I had a coworker a few years ago who was pregnant, and this is like I was pretty young at the time, and I'd never hung around a pregnant person before, and I was working with her every day, and she was like, "This is super weird." She goes, "I had a smoothie this morning, and it was just like yogurt and berries, and it gave me wicked heartburn." She was eating a Subway sandwich when she told me this. She was like, "This sandwich has jalapenos and banana peppers on it, and it's not giving me heartburn." And I was like, "It's just like you just don't
just makes no
know.
sense.
It makes no sense." I
That's
actually have
crazy.
another question about body stuff that just came to me, but I don't know what like the term is, so I'm going to use a little bit crude. But did your boobs explode? Do you know what I mean? Was it?
Yeah, how are your boobs doing?
But also like when they leak the first time.
Yeah. Have they started leaking?
This is another thing I did not know about boobs is that like at first the first kind of like thing that you produce is called colostrum, which is like a clear like liquid kind of gel thing. And the first time it happened, I was so disgusted. I think like Rob and I were like at home playing Scrabble or something, and I just looked down at my shirt and I was like, what? And I just like was like, oh, this is disgusting. Like I call it like boob jizz. I just think it's like I'm really struggling. Like it really grosses me out.
Yeah.
That actually is.
That sounds like what it
I mean,
it would look like. Oh my gosh.
Like, and I was like, oh, I'm not ready for this. This is so gross to me. And like, I get that nature is beautiful and it's gonna feed my baby and all this stuff, but like, I'm super grossed out by it. It always, for me right now at least, it always kind of seems to happen like at night. But I know like, I think where I'm at in my pregnancy, probably in a week from now, I have to start like hand expressing it and like saving it in like little tiny syringes and freezing it because it's kind of like the first food for your baby.
Oh, what?
So
wait, what are you supposed to do with it
You're
later?
supposed to save it?
You're supposed to save it and bring it to the hospital with you.
Why?
What?
yeah,
Oh, they test
because
it.
like,
No,
no,
but you
like,
feed
you
it.
feed it to your baby.
What?
That's crazy.
So
Oh my
you,
god,
like,
I've never heard this.
Again, I haven't done this yet, and like probably all the mothers watching this are going to be like, "You're such an idiot."
Whatever.
No judgment.
Is that yeah? So like you start hand expressing it into like a spoon or a cup, and then you get these like little syringes, these little vials, and you like syringe it up, and they're like 3 to 5 milligrams or milliliters, and you freeze that, and so when you go to the hospital, you like bring your bunch of like frozen syringes, and then once they thaw, you have to use it within 24 hours. So that'll be kind of like baby's like first food.
That
What?
is
It's like-
bizarre.
I believe from what I've read is that milk production, like the actual, not just colostrum, but milk starts like once your placenta attaches. That kind of is what starts that whole process in motion. So for the first, like up until I have the baby, it's mostly just boob jizz.
Oh, God. That's intense.
That's crazy.
I
I totally thought you were like producing milk during pregnancy. So that's really interesting.
I'm sure there's maybe some women that do. I don't know. Again, I'm totally not an expert on this. Just for me so far. And another weird boob thing is, and there's actually a medical term for it. My friend looked it up for me. I can't remember the name of it, but when I get cold, my nipples literally feel like they have been cut off by a meat slicer. They become
I've heard that.
so fucking painful, like you've never experienced. Like it's, you know when something is like so cold that it burns? Like if you like hold an ice cube or something like that? That's what it feels like. And so literally, like Rob and I will go for like a walk at night with our dog and stuff, and I'll just be like walking down the street going like fuck, like just like rocking because it just. Oh. We were actually talking about getting those like hot cold ice packs that you like break and like sticking them in there. And I asked my girlfriends, and a lot of them like didn't have that, but like the second if I get cold, it's just like fire nips.
I was watching just like a YouTube video of like this woman who has a vlog, and she was talking about she was pregnant, and she said the same thing about the stinging nipples. She said that her nipples also like they turned white, like they became discolored when it was happening to her. She was in so much pain, and she said the only thing that helps is a hot towel. So she was like, she was getting her husband to like microwave a towel and then like just laying with the towel on her boobs. And I'd never, until last night, that was the first time I'd heard of that. And I was like, that sounds
Oh my God. I feel like
horrendous.
I'm going to have that based on.
Yeah, you will.
I
definitely
will. Like literally last Friday, I was like when I get cold, sometimes I literally feel like I have that as a non-pregnant person. Like my nipples hurt so much. It feels like kind of like you were saying, like it's like when you're holding an ice cube, it's like so painful. I get that like just on a Friday, like just normal. So I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna have that hardcore.
that.
I gotta make sure that you're like stocked up with lots of like hot packs.
Yes.
Yeah, now you know.
Oh, now I know.
This is why we're doing this.
Yeah, exactly. That's so crazy.
And then like for me, I felt like my boobs got way bigger very early on. Like I outgrew my bras like pretty quickly. But then it kind of plateaued, and then I just got used to like the new size. But it happened like really early on, and I was fearful that it was just gonna like keep happening through the whole pregnancy. Again, like thinking that I was gonna be 500 pounds. But yeah, so that was interesting. That was interesting too. But yeah, the fire nips, not prepared for that.
That's insane.
Man. Yeah, I bet.
I know we're living through like, you know, obviously like a pandemic, and we're not exactly walking up to strangers and stuff right now. But another thing that I wanted to ask you too, because I feel like this happens a lot, is I'm wondering like if there's any weird like kind of boundaries that people are pushing with you in terms of like your, you know, when people just decide it's okay to touch someone's pregnant belly. I don't know if that's happening to you right now, but I'm curious like if anything like that has happened to you, and like if how you kind of feel about that stuff.
Yeah.
But then also in that same vein, are there anything like, are strangers offering you information about child rearing or pregnancy that's like very
advice?
very unsolicited, and just like like what kind of societal things are people putting onto you right now that are uncomfortable?
You know what? I feel like one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that I actually haven't experienced any of that. I haven't had a single stranger come up and touch my belly. I think people are so like when they're walking down the street, they're like eyes ahead. They're not like making eye contact with other people. Like I kind of, you know, you kind of expect that like if you're like in a lineup or you go into a cafe and there's like no chair, like people, you would think they'd be like, oh, you're pregnant, you're huge, like let me let you sit down. None of that. which I'm actually like, I've kind of been thankful for, you know, like sometimes I'm like, can people not tell that I'm pregnant? Like because I expected, I fully expected that kind of stuff and was, you know, kind of preparing myself every time I went to the grocery store, like, oh gosh, is somebody going to like touch me and like, you know, give me all this advice and stuff. But it's been different for me. I think one, cause like I no longer do work behind the chair doing clients. So I think if I was still doing hair and doing clients and I'm like had lots of clientele that were like moms and stuff, I'm sure those conversations would come up more. But really my interactions are limited to like my staff who is all younger than me and none of them have kids. And then like my, you know, immediate family. So it's been actually kind of nice. Like I feel like that's one area that I've just kind of been able to just like miss out on, and I'm not upset that I missed out on it. Like nobody's given me like inappropriate or like unwanted advice or anything like that. It's been more my staff has just been like asking me lots of questions, and they're always like, is that okay that I ask you that? I'm like, yeah, like I've told them I'm an open book when it comes to it, and if they're always like, can I touch your belly? And they always ask first, and I'm like, yeah, it feels so good. Like, so basically anytime I go into the break room, I get like free belly rubs from like all the staff. But that's kind of been it. Yeah.
You get any I don't know, I'm curious. I don't know how you feel about answering. But like I asked my parents, like, was there any unsolicited advice when like I was born, because I was a firstborn too. I was like, from your parents that was just like inappropriate. My dad told me his mom said, put some gin on my gums. And he was like, yeah, we don't do that anymore. Like, we're not going to do that. But has there been any like instances of that with like your parents or in-laws of just like, we're going to do things a little bit different and please don't?
If you want to talk about it.
If you want to talk about it, yeah, you don't have to. I'm just kind of curious.
Oh, yeah. No, it's totally fine. I don't think they know how to watch podcasts anyways, so...
We won't tell them.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting when it comes to like the actual like physical, like taking care of a child, like, you know, do this to calm them down or do that or whatever. Like they haven't really given me anything like that. It's more been kind of going back to what we first talked about the ideas of motherhood. It's more been like, oh, like buying really like frilly pink things, and I'm like, have you ever seen me wear a frilly pink thing? Like, is anything in my life frilly or pink? Like, you know, things like that, or you know, just like I kind of like making comments that really like lump me into like what my mother's idea of motherhood is, which is drastically different from mine. So in those instances, I've tried to like pick my battles a little bit and be like, well, like we're probably not going to do that, or, you know, and try and stand up for myself. But I'm also trying really hard not to like squash her excitement, because I'm like, how she wants to be as like a grandmother is going to be her own thing, and like, you know, she can be excited in her own way, and like I can be excited in my own way. So I'm trying to walk that line of like not crushing those dreams, but also being like, well, you know, I want to do things differently, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that's really nice too, to be able to like, you know, understand or just like have room for you going through this experience and what it's going to mean for you and what kind of mom you're wanting to be, and then also like honoring the fact that like your mom gets to have her own journey as a grandma. I think that is really nice.
Yeah, and like definitely like trying to remind myself of that a lot, because I'm like, oh wait, this isn't just a new experience for me. This is like the first grandkid for my mom, at least. For my mom and my dad, and then on Rob's side as well. So trying to be like, this is a new experience for them too. They're going to be excited. They're going to show it in different ways. And if you don't match their level of like outward enthusiasm or whatever it is, it's like, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're like any less excited. You just show it differently, you know? So
Do you have any
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like what do you know / what are your kind of expectations or like
Assumptions.
anticipation
Yeah.
of like postpartum body type things, like
physical
things, and then we'll do a podcast with you when you are actually like
We'll do part two.
part two later. Like we actually want to do that.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be interesting to almost compare like now what you've heard about postpartum, what you are kind of maybe expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that has been like super consistent across the board is that from friends is like usually day 3 or 4 after you have the baby is like this complete tidal wave of emotion of just like uncontrollable, like crying, just like it's something hormonally shifts. So I'm very thankful that people warn me for that. So I'm like, okay, day 3 and 4, we know we're probably not going to invite any visitors or anything like that. It's just going to be a day that we just like let the emotions go. And so I'm thankful that I know that, because I think in the moment I'll probably feel like I'm going crazy.
That fully happened to my mom. My mom had a full-on meltdown. She remembers it fully. She was like, I was holding you and I was just touching your body and just freaking out like, I have a baby. She said it was the first time that it hit her where she was like, you're a I have a baby. And she was like, just flooded with tears.
Oh,
So, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You know, and I think too, like for myself personally, like as somebody who has like struggled with depression in the past, and you know, I've been on antidepressants through my whole, like for the last 10 years, like through my whole pregnancy, knowing that I'm like more susceptible to depression and stuff like that. I tried to get a jump start on that by starting to do some of like the therapy sessions and just talking through some of that. So I'm kind of in the headspace, like I'm at least trying to get in the headspace that like, hey, this could be a struggle for me. So let's keep an eye out for like the early signs and make sure that I booked like several appointments out. Because I know when you're in like the middle of like a dark cloud, the last thing you want to do is like actually try and go and like schedule appointments. But I'm like, if I already know I've got these like appointments scheduled, I've got somebody that I can like talk to, give Rob a little bit of a break from. So it's actually, I think my history with depression has actually helped me because I'm like kind of preparing for that. And then if it isn't as bad as maybe it could be, that's just going to be like a silver lining kind of thing.
I think that's so amazing. That's like, I think something that, you know, I hadn't really even thought about so much is like just even, you know, booking those appointments so that they're like, you don't have to do it when you're actually like in the midst of it.
Yeah, that makes it way more difficult.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I think too, just like making sure that I, you know, am like surrounding myself virtually with friends that I know I can call like in the middle of the night if I'm literally feeling like I'm melting down and stuff like that. And so I feel, very, very blessed to have like the friend group that I have that have kind of all gone through this last year. And they're all like rooting for me and they're all like, call me anytime, day or night. So I'm like, I know there's going to be moments when I just have to like swallow my pride and make a phone call at 3 a.m. But thankful that I have that community. As far as like postpartum body, so this has like single-handedly been the coolest part about pregnancy for me is that, like most females, my whole life I've struggled with body image. I remember like 12 years old thinking that I was like fat and gross and would wear a belt like underneath my t-shirt to try and make my waist smaller, like just like messed up stuff as a kid, and like struggling with body image like all the way through teen years and university and all that kind of stuff that I think a lot of women just struggle with on a daily basis. And that was actually a big fear of mine before getting pregnant, was how my body was going to change. And just really expecting to struggle with my body image and to struggle with my self-esteem while physically watching myself, get bigger. But the coolest part about pregnancy is that for the first time, like since I was probably 10 years old, I've like literally not thought about my body image. It's been like this weird 8 months of freedom where like that constant part of my brain, like that was always going in the back of like, does this outfit make me look fat? Or like, oh, I shouldn't eat that, or like feeling guilty about whatever. I don't know why, I don't know how it happened, but that part of my brain, I feel like in pregnancy just kind of like shut off. And I'm so thankful for it. Like, it's nothing that I did. It's just, I literally, the bigger I get, the cuter people think I am. Yeah, I'm like loving my clothes, like rocking my outfits, like sticking my belly out. Like, I just don't, it just is not consuming my thoughts the way it has in the past. So with that being said, I'm curious to see how postpartum will go, because I actually forget what it feels like to have to not have a giant stomach. And like once she's out and like within a couple of weeks, and you're just going to be like, oh, the baby's on the outside, like I'm going to be able to bend down and touch my shoes again. Like, it's going to be, I think it's going to be weird. But I'm hoping, I'm really hoping that, I guess, kind of like this whole experience and just like seeing what my body can do, and like focusing on like the fact that I'm strong and I'm healthy and I'm these things, like I'm hoping that I can kind of take that and carry it forward with me.
I hope so too. That's definitely a thing. Like, I've also, like, my friend who was pregnant a few years ago, I was at her birth, and witnessing that, it's like, I don't know how you can like go through after seeing something like that and then also knowing that you were able to do something like that, which like a lot of people do, to their credit, but it's still insane. It's just like what your body is capable of doing, like what it's been able to do for you is so incredible. And so if you can kind of hang on to that going forward with things like body image and stuff, that incredible strength. Like, I really hope that that is like a positive thing that some people do bring out of their birth. I know people struggle with it, but like that is, it's crazy that you can do that.
It is.
So
It really is.
It's so insane. And I think one thing, like I don't know if this is off topic or not, but one thing that has honestly changed my life in the last couple years is through like doing hair. I met this woman who's a personal stylist, and we started trading services a couple years ago. So for the last couple years, the only time I go shopping, I maybe go shopping like 2 or 3 times a year, and I go with her, and she knows my style, she knows my size, and she picks things out. And once I started working with her, I actually my relationship with my body changed, because I always found shopping very depressing and frustrating. I'd leave feeling like there's nothing in stores that work for me, feeling unattractive, all these things. But once I started working with her, like in the last couple years, my relationship with my body has completely changed. I started wearing things that I would never have worn, even when I used to be into bodybuilding and was like ripped and like still felt self-conscious about my body. But through like working with a stylist, that I feel like she would help me learn how to like love my body and not be ashamed about any size or anything, and helping me learn how to like dress to like feel like I was actually expressing who I was on the inside. Was a huge change. So I'm excited. Like I know for sure, like once baby's here and like I kind of get back to like probably what the new normal is, like I'm going to go shopping with her and like kind of learn relearn my body again and learn how to dress it, and that honestly has been life-changing for me.
That's
Wow.
that's actually
That's
really
incredible.
awesome.
Yeah.
I've done that with friends as well. Like not like I'm not a stylist, but I know a lot about clothes. I know a
Yeah.
lot about cut and things like that. And then I have some friends, and my friend who has a baby too, is just like, I've helped people go shopping, and yeah, it's been a completely different experience for them. But I'm like, this is just what I do. It's kind of interesting to hear you talk about your experience
Yeah.
with that. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, like that's actually like helpful
It is.
because you
Yeah.
look good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you look good, and you don't walk away being like, oh, like once I lose 10 pounds or once I do this, then I'll feel good in my clothes. It's like, no, I can actually like walk out of a store and feel amazing right now, exactly the way I am. And I truly believe that like it is like a skill and a talent to like be able to do that for people, like, because it's not something that comes naturally for me, and shopping isn't something that I enjoy. But yeah, like not at all. And I know like not everyone's like that. Like not everyone like loves going shopping. So that's been super helpful for me.
That's amazing.
I love that. That's so awesome. And I do think like you were saying, like it's like going in and actually knowing, which is a skill, knowing what actually suits your body, like to make you feel good, you know, versus like going in with like, oh, I want to find XYZ, which maybe doesn't really actually work for you, isn't going to make you feel good. And then you just walk out feeling like super shitty and disappointed.
Yeah, and
you're
like
just
it's your fault that the clothes don't look good.
Yeah. So I think that's awesome.
Even just like what I've learned is like you put the blame, like a good technique is to like put the blame on the clothes, not on your body. Being like, nope, those pants are the wrong size, not like I'm the wrong size, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, I love
absolutely.
that.
Because
That's
it's
so
true.
awesome. It's so true. It's so true.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love that.
Okay, well, the last sort of topic is related to the first one of like, you know, society and feeling like your own person while being a mother. But I kind of wanted to akin it back to, you know, running your business and being a mother also, because I feel like there's a lot of people who kind of need that information, including you. Do you have any like plans or any like any framework for how you're going to continue to, because you are obviously, like run these successful businesses and maintain, you know, your boss lady life and have, you know, being a mother on the side of that? Like what are your hopes for how that's going to go?
So like hands down, the number one best thing that I have ever done in my career is hire a business coach. Just that like outside perspective that can see things that you don't see because you're like neck deep in it all the time. So for me, it's expensive, but it is worth its weight in gold. So pretty much like for the last, pretty much all through owning the salons, last 6 years, like I've had a business coach, and that has been like my lifesaver, because for so long, all my plans, all my business, everything was like up here, and which is great when you're starting out, and that's what you need. It's your dream, it's your vision, it's your baby. But if everything stays up here, you're never ever going to be able to like step back from the business. It's if you remove yourself, the whole thing crumbles. So I think especially like in 2020, with the pandemic and everything like that, and then finding out that I was pregnant, you know, I started working on kind of like this exit strategy like almost a year ago. So it was things like putting together like an operations manual, like, which is the most tedious thing in the world. I hated doing it, like every second of it, but it is like the best thing I've ever done, because now all these things that were just like in my head that I just like knew I had to do, it's like now it's all on paper, and I've been able to like delegate and break up my role and like spread it across like several people. And, you know, obviously like as any business owner knows, like hiring is is a challenge. I'm a super, super trusting person. So I just want to like hire everyone, and I just, that's come back to bite me in the butt in the past. But, you know, finding people that complement your strengths, and that have a very different skill set. So for me, like the manager that I've hired, to kind of like take over my role when I'm gone, he complements me so insanely well. Like he is so strong where I'm weak. And so with him coming on to the team, like about 6 months ago, we were able to really like hash out all these kind of pitfalls and areas that like, maybe I overlooked, and just try and put like systems and processes in place so that it's, again, not all on my shoulders. And, you know, this is my last week of work this week before I like officially go on mat leave. But I've kind of felt like the last couple of weeks, I'm like, I don't even really need to be here. Like we've done so much prep work.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, I'm really just there kind of hanging out right now because I'm going to miss everyone and just like wrapping up a couple last little things here and there. But, yeah, and I would never in a million years have done all of that work like without a business coach holding me accountable, you know, really making me do the things that I did not want to do, which was like writing a freaking operations manual and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm feeling really confident about stepping away, knowing that like you can remove me from the puzzle and it's not all just going to collapse.
I think that's amazing, and that's like some solid advice.
Prepare.
Yeah, just prepare. And I think like, you know, you have talked about business coaches with me multiple times, and I think like that's like advice. Definitely, like hearing it, I know we need to do it, and it's something like as a business, it's a goal.
Yeah.
But even just like thinking of that, like of like eventually wanting to have kids, it's like that's like one of my biggest things is like, how do I prepare like everything so that I can be taken out, even if it's just for a couple months or whatever.
It's really important.
Yeah. But that's amazing. And I think, and I know you've done the hard work of preparing. It's not like it's easy. I know it's been hard. So
it's funny because now my worry is just that like I'm just gonna like miss the salon and they're not gonna need me, and I'm just gonna be like coming by every day with my stroller, being like, "Hey guys, like I miss you."
That might happen, but it also might not. You might just be able to appreciate
exactly
that. So.
That's so awesome.
Well, we definitely are going to have you on for a part 2.
Definitely.
For life postpartum.
If I'm wearing a sweatshirt that says rosé all day, reschedule.
We'll check on you before and see what kind of printed leggings you have on or whatever. So yeah, this was awesome. And if you would like to, I don't know if you want people to find you, you can plug the salon if you want to. But if you would like to plug anything, is there anything that you want to?
Where can people find you?
Yeah, where can people find you?
You can find our salon at www.artelsalon.com. That's ARTEL, exactly like it sounds. We're on Instagram at Artel Salon. We're on YouTube at Artel Salon. We've got 3 locations in Vancouver, 1 on Fraser Street and 2 on Cambie. And yeah, it's a great place. Tons of amazingly talented stylists, and it's where I like to be every day. It's so fun. I love my team, and they do really, really good hair.
They do.
They do.
They do.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for this.
Yeah,
this was awesome.
So awesome.
Thanks for having me, guys. I was like so excited.
Yay! We were excited
Me too. It's awesome, and I know people will definitely have a lot of things to take away from it. There's a lot of things that we discussed that I think are important to discuss and like to share, and I'm really grateful that you felt comfortable to share.
Thank you.
All the boob jizz and discharge that you're going through.
Amazing.
I love it. Ah, thanks, Liz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Why So Mysterious is hosted by Sara Jonsdottir and Raven McLean. Audio is produced and edited by Sonia Inke. Original music is by Malcolm Holt and Alexis Young.
Check out our website, whysomysterious.com, for more information about this episode and other episodes. You can also email us with questions or topics you'd like to hear us cover on the show at whysomysteriousPod@gmail.com.
Follow us on Instagram at Why So Mysterious Pod for updates, fun facts, and general outrage. If you're an audio listener, but you'd rather be a voyeur, check us out on YouTube.
If you like the show, tell your friends, and don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
Until next time.